for a woman who has done merit. She may wish, having born into a suitable family, may I be married into a suitable family. That also easy to obtain. And then she wants to dwell at home without a rival and without a second wife. That also easy for her to obtain if she has done merit. And if she wants to have many sons, that also is easy for her to obtain if she has done merit. And if she wants to control the husband, put the husband under her thumb, this is also easy for her if she has done merit in the past. These are the 5 situations that are easy to obtain for a woman who has done merit. So doing merit, meritorious deeds is very important so that we can get what we want. And what are the ways to do meritorious deeds? The formula is dana, sila, bhavana. Dana is doing charity. Sila is keeping the precepts so that you don't harm other living beings. The basic is the 5 precepts. Also you have to know the 10 unwholesome karmas, to refrain from doing the 10 unwholesome karmas. And then the third is bhavana. Bhavana is development of the mind. Through studying the Dhamma we get wisdom, and then meditating to control our mind. And the last sutta in this chapter, 37.34, the Buddha said, monks, growing in 5 areas of growth, a woman noble disciple grows with a noble growth, and she acquires the essence, acquires the best of this bodily existence. What are the 5? She grows in faith, in virtue, in learning, in generosity, and in wisdom. Growing in these 5 areas of growth, a woman noble disciple grows with a noble growth, and she acquires the essence, acquires the best of this bodily existence. When she grows here in faith and virtue, in wisdom, generosity, and learning, the virtuous woman lay disciple acquires right here the essence for herself. It's the end of the sutta. So there are 5 things that are very good to have. The first one is faith in the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. The second one is virtue. Virtue is moral conduct. To have moral conduct. Third one in learning. Learning is in our Buddhist teaching. Learning means to be learned in the Buddha's discourses. There's a term commonly found in the suttas, Bahu Sutta and Bahu Sacca. It means much learning of the Buddha's words, of the Dhamma. And then the 4th is generosity, to be open-handed, not selfish, to be kind to others. And lastly, wisdom. Wisdom is very important. So these are the 5 things which are important. Faith, virtue, learning, generosity, and wisdom. Now we come to the next chapter, chapter 38, Jambukhadaka Samyutta. This course is concerning Jambukhadaka, the wanderer, the external ascetic. The first sutta I read is 38.3. At one time, and on one occasion, the Venerable Sariputta was dwelling in Magadha at Nalakagama. Then the wanderer Jambukhadaka approached the Venerable Sariputta and exchanged greetings with him. When they had concluded their greetings and cordial talk, he sat down to one side and said to the Venerable Sariputta, "Friend Sariputta, who are the proponents of Dhamma in the world? Who are practicing well in the world? Who are the fortunate ones in the world?" And Venerable Sariputta replied, Friend, those who teach the Dhamma for the abandonment of lust, for the abandonment of hatred, for the abandonment of delusion, they are the proponents of Dhamma in the world. They are the teachers of Dhamma. Those who are practicing for the abandonment of lust, for the abandonment of hatred, for the abandonment of delusion, they are practicing well in the world. Those for whom lust, hatred and delusion have been abandoned, cut off at the root, made like palm stumps, obliterated so that they are no more subject to future arising, they are the fortunate ones in the world. And then he asks, but friend, is there a path, is there a way for the abandonment of this lust, hatred and delusion? And Venerable Sariputta said, there is a path, friend. There is a way for the abandonment of this lust, hatred and delusion. And what, friend, is that path? And Venerable Sariputta said, it is this, friend, this noble eightfold path, namely right view, right thoughts, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right recollection, and right concentration. And then he said, excellent is the path, friend. Excellent is the way for the abandonment of this lust, hatred and delusion. And it is enough, friend Sariputta, for diligence. So, anyone who is supposed to teach the Dhamma should be teaching the Dhamma for the abandoning of lust, hatred and delusion. Nowadays, sometimes some people are supposed to teach Dhamma, but sometimes they teach worldly Dhamma. Because worldly Dhamma is more entertaining to a lot of people, not so tough to understand. So some people, they like to listen to the Dhamma where they can laugh and be happy. But that doesn't teach you how to abandon lust, hatred and delusion. So in the Buddha's teaching, that is not teaching Dhamma. Those who are practicing well in the world are those who are practicing for abandoning lust, hatred and delusion. So that is real monks. If a monk wears the robe and he does not practice to abandon lust, hatred and delusion, then he is not doing the job of a monk. Okay, the next sutta is 38.8. In the same way, Venerable this wanderer Jambukhadaka asked Venerable Sariputta, friend Sariputta, it is said, asava or tain. What now is an asava? And then Venerable Sariputta said, there are, friend, these three asavas, the asava of sensuality, the asava of existence, and the asava of ignorance. These are the three asavas. And then he asked, but friend, is there a path, is there a way for the abandonment of these three asavas? Venerable Sariputta said, there is a path, friend, there is a way. And this way is a noble eightfold path, as you mentioned earlier. So this asava, what is this asava? Asava here, it says there are three asavas. But in some other sutta, they say there are four asavas. They add another one, the asava of views, I think. This asava, Pali word asava, comes from a root word that means leakage, outflow. So when you destroy these asavas, you have become enlightened, you have broken the wheel of existence. Now since the world arises only in consciousness, the world exists only within the six sense consciousness, the seeing consciousness, the hearing, smelling, taste, touch, and thinking consciousness. So because the world exists in the consciousness, as long as consciousness flows, there is the world. So when consciousness stops flowing, then the world ceases. So enlightenment is defined as destruction of the asavas in the suttas. Destruction of the asavas, to me it means destruction of the uncontrolled mental outflows, basically the uncontrolled consciousness. So when you stop the tendency of the mind to flow, for consciousness to flow, then when that person dies, the consciousness does not flow anymore, and he does not take rebirth. So asavas can be translated as the uncontrolled mental outflows. 38.9. Again, remember this wanderer Jambukhadaka asks, Friend Sariputta, it is said, ignorance, avijja. What now is ignorance? And Venerable Sariputta replied, not knowing suffering, not knowing the origin of suffering, not knowing the cessation of suffering, not knowing the way leading to the cessation of suffering. This is called ignorance. But friend, is there a path, is there a way for the abandonment of this ignorance? There is a path, friend, there is a way, namely this Noble Eightfold Path. So this ignorance is not understanding suffering, not exactly not knowing suffering, not understanding suffering, not understanding the origin of suffering, not understanding the cessation of suffering and the way leading to the cessation of suffering. If you understand these four things, then you understand the Four Noble Truths. If you understand it deeply, you would have become enlightened. 38.11. Friend Sariputta, it is said, flood, the Pali word is oga. What now is a flood? And Venerable Sariputta replied, there are, friend, these four floods, the flood of sensuality, the flood of existence, the flood of views, the flood of ignorance. These are the four floods. But friend, is there a path, is there a way for the abandonment of these four floods? There is a path, friend, there is a way, namely this Noble Eightfold Path. These four floods, we have to cross to go to the other shore, to attain Nibbana, sensuality or sensual desire. And then the second one is the craving for existence. And the third is proliferation of views, having all kinds of silly views, and then ignorance of the Four Noble Truths. If we overcome all these, then we go to the other shore, attain Nibbana. 38.12. Friend Sariputta, it is said, clinging here is upadana. Another translation is attachment. What now is clinging? There are, friend, these four kinds of clinging or attachment. Clinging to sensual pleasures, clinging to views, clinging to rules and vows, clinging to a doctrine of self. These are the four kinds of clinging. But friend, is there a path, is there a way for the abandonment of these four kinds of clinging? There is a path, friend, there is a way, namely this Noble Eightfold Path. So these four kinds of attachment we have to get rid of if we don't want to take rebirth. Attachment to sensual pleasures, to views, to rules and vows. Here it says rules and vows, sometimes translated as rules and rituals. And then clinging to the doctrine of a self, believe that a self exists. This self is a little bit different from the worldly understanding of the self. In Buddhism we say anatta, there's no self. But in Buddhism the self means something that is unchanging, something that is permanent, that will never change, that you can identify as myself. This is me, this is I. But everything in the world is changing. So because everything in the world is changing, whatever you try to identify as yourself, it will cease to exist. Everything in the world arises through conditions and ceases through conditions. Nothing lasts in the world. Nothing lasts forever. So because everything in the world is a flux of energy that keeps changing and changing and changing, you can